Well, the Sentinel was on it 2 days ahead of the Kansas City Star, who just wrote about it this morning, and that is a Johnson County resident is suing Prairie Village, saying the new $30 million City Hall proposal breaks Kansas law. So the Sentinel had this over the weekend. Kansas City Star just getting around to it this morning. That's why we're happy to welcome on Dave Trabert with the Kansas Policy Institute. Of course, the Sentinel is under their umbrella. All right, Dave, residents who are looking at this lawsuit, how confident should they be that there's possibility of something turning a corner here on their behalf?
Well, good morning, Pete. I can't, I'm not an attorney, so I can't offer a legal opinion, but I can say that Mr. Vianello seems to have raised some multiple issues that could indicate that the city didn't have the authority to do what it's doing in denying people a right to vote. There are laws guiding how, when you want to take on general obligation bonds, how that must be done, and they're allegedly trying to do an end run around that with a city ordinance.
Man, I am rooting for this guy, and not because I'm a Prairie Village resident, but we talk about the abuse basically that it seems like residents are taking from their local municipalities, and it's bad right now in Johnson County. This would be a great message to send to all of our municipal leaders that you got to listen to the residents once in a while, or at least pretend to, because they seem to not care anymore what the residents think about their own communities.
Well, there's a lot of people. There's certainly a lot of people, I'd say, who support what the council wants to do. But there's another large group that don't. They're just saying, at least let us vote. Why would you not want residents to vote? Because the residents are going to be the ones paying off the bills. They're going to pay for the debt and the interest. They're going to be paying higher property tax to do it. So why not let them vote? Unless you know that it would go down in an election and you want to do it anyway.
The one thing, and I've said this to people on the Prairie Village City Council on this show and privately, the one thing is where do you draw that line? Because a part of me says, hey, this is why we need people to care about their local elections versus simply being outraged when this stuff comes up that they don't like. Because a lot of these people who are going to be outraged, they won't go vote in their city elections, and that's a major problem right now.
It is. And perhaps it takes an issue of this magnitude to wake people up and help them understand the importance of going out to vote on Election Day.
Dave Trabert, Kansas Policy Institute, is here on KCMO. So what else are you watching on this story, Dave?
Well, we're still hoping to get some information about the debt itself and what it would take to pay it off. The city says on its website that there wouldn't need to be any property tax increase. That's hard to believe. They may say that they can hold the mill levy, but even if they do, there will be property tax increases because valuations go up. If you're charging the same rate, you're going to take in more money. Either they refuse to provide a cash flow analysis or they didn't do it. And it's possible, and we've seen this happen. Sometimes government doesn't want to do some exercise because then you can get it through open records requests. They tell us they don't have it. So it's either incompetence or they're not telling the truth. But you need to lay this out and see how it's going to impact not just the bonds for this project, but other obligations and how the city is going to fund its general operations.
I want to ask you about some of the other projects that are happening. There's a new health services building that is being built in Olathe, and it's right behind the old one there at about 119th and Ridgeview. Overland Park, I guess, is proposing a new city hall that'll make this Prairie Village City Hall look like chump change at over $100 million. When I see these big government buildings going up in suburban communities, I can't help but think that these people are unable to realize how bad this looks to residents who are just trying to get by and pay their property tax bills, while they brag to those very same people about, look at our shiny, glitzy new buildings. Do you think that there's any self-reflection going on here at all by these people?
I don't think so, Pete. It's sad, but I say so because I've been to public hearings in Olathe and Overland Park and at the Johnson County Commission. And in each case, I've seen residents pleading for elected officials to not raise property tax, and they kind of sit there stone-faced and do it anyway. And they don't need to. I mean, you look at their financial statements. Overland Park is projecting to finish the year with $159 million in their operating fund, cash reserve.
Well, they say that's how they keep their bond rating high, right?
That's what they say, and what they're effectively saying in that case is that's more important to them than people being able to pay their property tax. Again, it is something that is for the convenience of staff and elected officials. The taxpayer often is not taken into consideration. As you pointed out, they're putting up shiny buildings, whether they need it or not, and some people are struggling to pay their bills.
And think about this, too. It's something that I just happened to think about the other night on this specific issue, and it's that every time, you have developers and construction folks getting involved in these $100 million city and county projects, well, basic economics would suggest that hurts the private sector because now the cost of the private sector building its own new building or building its own business is going to go up because you've got the government building $100 million buildings left and right around Johnson County. So there is a trickle-down effect for the broader economy there for the private sector. So once again, I think it hurts the private sector the more they do this. What do you think?
It can. It certainly can. And it's a good point you make that there's no consideration for the unseen consequences of actions, whether it's raising the cost of construction or delaying projects elsewhere, or just unnecessarily spending money to accomplish something. We looked at, we're actually getting ready for another candidate briefing here, and one of the things we're pointing out is that in 2022, Johnson County, this is just the county, not all the other entities, spent $1,600 per resident, whereas other large counties around here spend less than $1,000 per resident.
Wow.
Now, Johnson County would say, well, we have better quality services. And maybe that's true, but do you need to spend double what other counties spend per resident? And you see it keep going up and up and up, and they're holding these enormous cash balances. And if you're worried about paying a little bit of more interest when if you don't have the perfect bond rating, then just borrow a little less. It's cash flow management. It's not about getting a gold star for having a high bond rating.
So true. So true. Dave, thank you for staying on this. I know the story is going to be one that we'll both be watching in Prairie Village, and we always appreciate you joining us on KCMO.
Yeah, thanks for the Pete. Thanks, Pete. And thanks
you
for
as
your
well.
coverage.
Thank you, my friend.
Right. Bye.
Dave Trabert on 95.7 FM. Great to have him on the show as always. Think about that new courthouse downtown Olathe. $193 million project. Don't get me wrong. It's nice. It's glitzy. I'd like to know how full that place is. I'm just saying. Haven't been in there in a while. I try to avoid the courthouses around town as best I can.